The morning of my wedding started with quiet excitement. The chapel was beautiful, the sun streamed through the stained glass, and everything seemed perfect until I entered the dressing room. My heart sank as I saw my wedding dress in a heap on the floor, ripped and stained. I froze, trying to process what I was seeing. Who could have done this? "Looks like you'll have to wear something else," said a smug voice behind me. I turned to see my sister, Marlene, leaning casually against the doorway. Her smirk was enough to confirm what I suspected. "Marlene, did you do this?" My voice was calm, but my hands trembled. "What if I did?" she replied, shrugging. "That dress was hideous anyway. You should thank me." The shock of her words stunned me. This wasn't the first time Marlene had acted out, but to ruin my wedding dress on my wedding day? It was a cruelty I hadn't expected, even from her. Before I could respond, my mother-in-law, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward. "It's good we prepared a backup," she said, her tone even. "A backup?" I asked, confused. "Yes, Sophia," she replied with a small smile. "Let me show you something." She led me to another room where a gown hung, carefully preserved. It was breathtaking. Silk, lace, and Swarovski crystals shimmered in the soft light. It looked like it belonged to royalty. "This was my wedding dress," she explained. "I kept it in perfect condition, hoping one day someone deserving would wear it. If you accept it, it's yours." Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "You deserve to shine today, no matter what anyone tries to do to stop you." Her kindness reignited something in me, a resolve to not let Marlene or anyone ruin this day. I smiled and said, "Thank you. I'll give it my all." The mood in the chapel shifted as the ceremony began. As the grand doors opened, solemn music flowed through the air. My father stood by my side, his hand trembling slightly as he held mine. When we began walking down the aisle, gasps of surprise rippled through the crowd. My new dress with its shimmering silk and intricate lace left everyone in awe. My father's tears flowed freely as he escorted me, but I felt calm, steady, and determined. At the altar, Jacob waited, his expression shifting from confusion to admiration as he saw me. I caught his eyes through my veil and smiled, feeling the strength of his love in that moment. But as I glanced toward the family seats on my side, I saw Marlene. Her face was a mask of shock and disbelief. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to appear in anything but a disaster. I walked past her without a word, holding my head high. By the time I reached Jacob and took his hand, Marlene was fidgeting with the handkerchief she held, her composure slipping. The ceremony proceeded beautifully, exchanging vows, placing rings, and sharing a kiss under a cascade of flowers. As we walked back down the aisle together, Marlene's handkerchief tore in her frustrated grip. In that moment, I realized this day wasn't about proving anything to her. It was about Jacob and me, and the joy we shared. At the reception, the air was filled with laughter and excitement. Guests marveled at the decorations, the food, and my dress. Jacob and I were basking in the love and warmth of the moment when a loud voice suddenly interrupted. "Wait!" Marlene's sharp tone cut through the chatter. Everyone turned to look at her as she pointed at me. "Why are you wearing such an expensive dress?" she demanded, her voice rising. "What's with the long veil and the tiara? Why are you standing out so confidently? This isn't fair." Her words shocked the crowd into silence. Marlene's face twisted with frustration as she continued. "You're supposed to be plain and insignificant. How dare you look better than me today?" The guests were horrified, but Marlene seemed oblivious. She glared at me and stepped closer. "Take it off right now," she hissed. "You don't deserve to wear something so beautiful." Before I could respond, my mother-in-law stepped forward. "Enough," she said firmly. Her calm demeanor silenced even Marlene. "This dress isn't just beautiful," she began. "It's a haute couture gown, custom-made for my wedding. It cost $200,000 when it was first created, and it's even more valuable now." Marlene's jaw dropped. 200,000? She stammered, her face pale. "Yes," my mother-in-law continued, her voice steady. "And I chose to let Sophia wear it because she deserves it. She is kind, thoughtful, and has shown strength beyond measure. The room erupted into murmurs of agreement, and Marlene looked completely undone. She tried to regain her composure, but her jealousy was too overwhelming. "Why would you give something so precious to her?" she spat. "Why not me?" Jacob finally spoke, his voice firm but calm. "Because Sophia is everything I've ever wanted in a partner. She's independent, caring, and sees me as more than just my wealth." Marlene scoffed. "That's ridiculous. If you're rich, you should be spoiling her. She's just a fool for splitting costs with you." "That's exactly why I love her," Jacob replied, his voice unwavering. "She values partnership and respect. That's something money can't buy." Marlene had no comeback. She stood there, red-faced and fuming, before throwing her hands up in exasperation. The guests began to turn their attention away, eager to return to the celebration. But I wasn't done. "Marlene," I said, stepping forward, "you owe me for the dress you destroyed." She laughed bitterly. "Prove it. You have no evidence I did anything." I smiled, calm but firm. "Actually, the bridal dressing room was under surveillance. I had cameras installed for security. Everything is recorded." Her face drained of color. You wouldn't," she whispered. "I would, and I will," I said. "If you don't pay for the damages, I'll file a police report for property destruction." The weight of my words finally hit her. Marlene's shoulders slumped as she realized there was no way out. "I'll figure something out," she muttered. The rest of the reception was a dream. Jacob and I danced, laughed, and shared heartfelt moments with our families. For the first time in years, I felt free from Marlene's shadow. After the wedding, my parents made the difficult decision to cut ties with her. They were heartbroken by her actions and knew they could no longer enable her behavior. As for Marlene, she struggled. She was forced to pay for the ruined dress, which drained her finances and left her living in a small, cramped apartment. Without her usual charm or confidence, she became isolated and resentful. Meanwhile, Jacob and I thrived. I poured my passion into my new career, designing wedding dresses for other brides. Supported by Jacob and my mother-in-law, I created gowns that made every bride feel as special as I had on my wedding day. Though the pain of Marlene's betrayal lingered, it didn't define me. I had found joy, love, and purpose, and nothing could take that